We're in a system that symbolically has that energy suppressed. You know, there's disease, imbalance, world war. I mean, we've just been through it. Thousands and thousands of years of dark history. And it's really the return to the cosmic Trinity, mother, father, the true parents, and sacred union, away from the false parents and the false partner. So the false partner would be what has been modeled to us, the imbalance of the masculine and feminine, being at discord with each other, and then the Anunnaki, the lower creator gods that have kept us from true source, and how that's in our genetic code, and how this junk DNA actually holds the connection to all of that. I usually start off with this first slide just to give you an idea of where I get my information from. And yeah, and I think we could all agree your life experience is the training ground. I was targeted to go off planet, so very early on I felt this attention on me that I later on found out, you know, what that was. And when it was disclosed to me and I was able to process it and figure out what actually was going on, yeah, the rabbit holes were really, really opening up as far as like how to articulate it and begin to really connect these dots. So yeah, realizations and epiphanies along the way. High school, basically my education was I Ching, Tarot, astrology. I wasn't like much into school. I was just doing that kind of thing, trying to navigate the madness. It was just like full on right away, just so much swarming around me and just trying to figure out myself and everything going on and what I was being led to and guided to. It was the way I could make sense out of things. And I did end up going to school for wilderness expedition leadership, got a science degree, and that was really incredible just to be in the elements. And that's very much what my presentation is about, how our soul energy and our DNA is connected to the elementals, and how we have been existing in this world where geoengineering and mind control and social engineering and indoctrination has really contaminated those elementals. Yeah, so the reason I put like life experience and epiphanies along the way, I've always just been so fascinated by just like the human body and the signals that it's sending us to help us to get to know ourselves better and to help us to heal. And when I was taking microbiology and we were studying disease, I just remember being like, it just can't be that simple where you just catch something and you're just sick. You know, there's more to it on a multidimensional level. There's so much more going on, and it just got me thinking. And yeah, and they call it ADD when you think too much outside of the box and you can't like focus, but like, you know, so we're trying to protect future generations from those labels, those stigmas, so we can, you know, really hear what we all have to say, because we all have something important to share. So there's a deep place within us where we have always known who we truly are, which I would say is our intuition. Our inability to call it forward has created lists of conditions and diagnoses in the medical world that seem to undermine and label the efforts put forth by the soul to be free, to feel loved, and to be living as one's true authentic self. Just the very act of that, or just like attempting to do that can, yeah, we've all lived it. It's not the easiest thing. Plus, you know, we're bombarded with all sorts of, so Black Sun Draconian agenda, ancient roots manipulating draconian reptoids on Earth, masterminds of Council of Nicaea, Church of Rome, Cathar Essene Crusades, human holocaust. Zeta Zephyrin-backed treaties with military-industrial complex, human abduction. Zeta and Draconians created alliance for OWO transhuman objectives. Parallel AI built on base 10 template, top of the chain in 10D Pluto matrix. So when we talk about 10D, that's basically 10 strands of DNA, blocking the stargates that would connect us to the full 12. So sometimes if you Google like Tree of Life, you'll notice there's 10 spheres. That's draconian DNA. It's supposed to be 12. And so they compromise their DNA to be in control. And as a vampiric race, we know it's like about the siphoning and harvesting of our energy. Dragon Moth, Draco, Anunnaki, Necromaton, Zeta Dracon, Tall Whites, Nordics, Marduk, Omicron, Satanic. So with all those names, it's like, okay, right? You know, very much Second World War, you know, Nordics, Draconian, Nazis made a deal in the 30s. Just everyday human experience. I mean, you can come in here and want to create the human dream or the American dream or whatever the dream is. And a lot of people are just going along with their lives without any real idea of all this that's going under the surface. And so we see, you know, these psyops and these false flags and just people being tricked and duped. And it's very, very unsettling and very difficult, you know, to witness that and to go through it ourselves, because we're going through it. So yeah, and when we awakened, then we got the targeting, right? So you're targeted when you're unconscious, but you don't realize you're being targeted. You're just being played and duped. And then when you're awake, it's like, no, you can't say this. So anyway, we're in such an incredible phase of all of this right now, which is really beautiful. And when I was talking about the Mars recruitment, I'm just going to share a little bit. In 2006, this was when the attempted recruitment happened, where it was actually like in the physical, but it was a pre-targeting before birth. So in 2006, they attempted to recruit me into a hidden operation regarding the alternative 3 colonization of Mars scenario with a target date 2012. So the pre-targeting was before birth, and they utilized looking glass technologies to locate me and others to mess with the timelines. And so I'm going to go a little bit into that in my next talk. But basically, the information got intercepted in the Eisenhower administration that there would be a migration of many souls coming in to bring about the Great Awakening, and one would come into the family to blow the lid off this military-industrial complex and a lot of the false narratives that they were keeping their eye on things because they found out, and that's supposedly why I was targeted. That's the closest I can get to answering those questions, but I'm not one to create totally fixed beliefs. But if enough people say it that don't know each other, and this is the information I've been getting throughout my life, and the intuition tells me so, it's like, okay, something to that effect. Yeah, so, and they targeted also a partner that they located in a past life that I had like a hierogamic union and a very strong relationship with, and they used him as bait. So they were able to locate me and a significant partner, and they pulled him into their program. I wasn't in any MK Ultra programs or SRA or MyLab, but I was targeted with weaponry, and you know, him being placed in my path was one of the strategies. So I knew if I went, I would not be assisting in the organic ascension. I was aware of my mission as a child. I knew there was something dark and sinister about this Mars agenda. I felt that it was originally well-intended to protect the human genome, and that there was also deals made that they would evacuate some for specific reasons, but being the rebel and being that you can't control me kind of person that I am, I don't even know why they bothered with me. It was just not going to happen. It was just not going to happen. So anyway, I also could see why they would want to launch such a mission, but the many layers and compartmentalism made it difficult for everyone involved. You know, they all think they were doing, or a lot of them thought they were doing something, you know, really important, you know, for humanity. It was a very necessary thing to do. And me, amongst many of you, just this is who we are. We know that this is a time where we want to expose all the games being played, all the dark technologies, and not just be on the surface, be the surface population that's getting depopulated and facing like this new world order. And so this alternative 3 scenario was basically like all about that. You know, going off somewhere else while the surface population is compromised, depopulated, and facing New World Order. And a lot of us have just been like, no, we're going to call this out, we're going to do our best, and we're going to do what we can with Mother Earth, because the Mother Planet is healing herself. And so many that don't have faith in this planet, you know, we're coming up with other ideas and other options in the event of these cataclysms, catastrophes. But what about the Mayan prophecies and ascension, and the fact that this planet, you know, could move into a higher harmonic universe and release itself of the clutches of this darker agenda? So I mentioned the Draconian Black Suns, but there's the Sons of Belial, and it's basically service to self, vampiric, and you know, literally, you know, not a part of assisting us in our awakening, but more leveraging our amnesia and taking advantage of our vulnerabilities, as we know. But it's rooted very much in the dark technologies of the planetary grid network that works in tandem with what we get through the news, what we get through, you know, the pillars of society, and everything that gets like projected onto us. So mass biological and mind control devices exist well beyond the technology of implanting tiny physical chips into humans, which accompany many of the abductions by the Greys and non-benevolent Zetas, and also are an impending application of such electronic devices by the one world government to the population. Even brain signatures radiated by government HARP and Gwen towers are relatively superficial compared with ancient existing global grid systems, which can be used for manipulating the evolution of life on the planet, including the planet's evolution itself. So that's Global Grid Systems, Noel Huntley. So if you can manipulate a planet and create an artificial timeline, I mean, obviously that's what they're trying to do to us. I mean, the two go hand in hand. So when we're like being blasted with stuff and our creative channels are being infected with propaganda and, you know, indoctrination and false narratives, we're going down a trajectory that we don't need to go down. That's not true to who we really are. So the whole awakening to me is dismantling this dark weaponry, understanding that we're the more advanced technology, and as much as maybe we can't physically dismantle it, we can energetically dismantle it because it's all about frequency. And obviously, you know, what comes through the news and all the psyops and trigger events are to drop our energy and put us in a state of panic to then steer us and control us. So I've been very familiar with the whole concept of engineering events, so that one fails. It's been said to me many times that this is what my targeting has been about, that many events in my life that have taken place were set up in order to break me down and defeat me. There's a whole bunch of us out there contending with this. This whole planet is contending with this. We are all to varying degrees. There are engineered versions of our traumatic experience that comes from the global villains that are vampiric, and then there is facing your maker and karma and agreements to experience something so that a transformation and upgrade can occur. So it happens simultaneously, but in that moment we have a choice. In that time of adversity, dis-ease, conflict, and strife, are we going to choose, you know, getting to know ourselves better or continuing to allow something outside of us to pull us in and yank us into this further dependency bond where we get further away from ourselves, which eventually leads to transhumanism? So the artificial that is trying to control a narrative, a timeline, using geoengineering, indoctrination, psyops, weaponizing elements, and consciousness in order to control the trajectory of life and destiny is the vampiric harvesting methods that infect our creative channels into manifesting a future we don't want. But we de-weaponize the weapons when we clear and purify our inner elementals and we're in divine consciousness. We support one another and we know what to do. The Death and Tower archetype resides within our soul to rebirth and rebuild, heal, awaken, and restore. And to me, that's Pluto and Uranus, the planets, the outer planets. We don't have a whole lot of control over them, but they're very much what our higher self is all about, what our intuition is all about, that we misunderstand when those transits happen, like, oh, all this loss or all this, you know, the loss of this or this got destroyed, and we don't see it as an upgrade. We've been trained to think that's a misfortune, or you're screwed, or you're in survival now, and you lost everything. You know, we're not. We don't have a lot of support in you know, knowing how to make sense out of things, or seeing the wisdom, or just seeing the bigger picture. So anyway, artificial intelligence systems have been designed and weaponized, specialized for emotional and ultimately spiritual harassment. This is so the emotional and spiritual energies get lowered to the level that a machine can entrain, follow, mimic, match, record, modify, and replicate that energetic blueprint. If our consciousness is above this and not in the programming, we aren't as impacted. So if we're like witness to it, if we can like speak to it, if we can acknowledge it while it's happening and not just be on autopilot, then we can really begin to dismantle it, because, you know, our words, our greater heart, you know, our willingness to talk to each other on a soul level. It's like, yeah, they can like mimic, match, and to a certain degree, some of it, to just kind of mess with us through the AI or through algorithms or through like, you know, censorship, or through, you know, maybe your partner all of a sudden does a 360 turn and it's like channeling an archon and just starts to attack you out of nowhere, and you're like, what the hell has happened to him or her? And it's like, yeah, right. And at least you can be like, okay, honey, you know, it's not all you. I mean, we are dealing with some, like, you know, we're not, let's cut ourselves some slack. Because, you know, there are ways to leverage this. I mean, literally our wounds and traumas are what they leverage. And so it's very interesting to see Chiron in the astrological charts of people, and dark Saturn and that whole interplay. And actually Saturn's going to conjunct Chiron and square Pluto, so it's going to be a really, really intense time of this shift. And I'll get more into detail about all that. But when our consciousness is above this, it's just we're not being controlled by it. We're not being, our self-worth isn't tied up into, you know, something that can like continue to harvest and siphon. You know, as humans, we're going to experience this, but we can at least call our energy back, you know, alchemize, transmute, and take it to a higher level after sinking down into the darkness of it all, without like, you know, the false cures and solutions and, dependency bonds and, you know, all the things that just keep us disempowered because we feel vulnerable when, you know, these moments happen. So here's a particular technology that is called the Energy. It's the Nephilim reversal grid technology. It's a massively complicated alien structure that has interfered with true spiritual marriage or Hieros Gamos as a possibility for human beings on the planet. The Niberian diodic crystal grid is another negative ET technology control network. This affects the grids and have been placed in sacred sites such as Stonehenge to really impact the Michael Mary line, the whole sacred union energy. The Albion and Cathar body was unplugged, the masculine and feminine, the electromagnetic energies were messed with. And I'm going to get into the reversal, what that really means, and how that's being broken. So through osmosis, we're just born into this world. And it's just like the energies are just, phew. So, and then add this on top of it. Our distorted and rewritten history, current and past mind control dogmas, mutations within all nature, endless wars and conflicts in general are all products of the invader ET's quest for the Holy Grail. Earth civilization has been thoroughly programmed via the resident on-planet Illuminati representatives to believe such chaos is natural and to occlude any memory of our true heritage. So the Holy Grail of us, you know, being the inner soul alchemists, you know, understanding what it means to be a Christed individual, to move through all these different, you know, initiations into the fullness of like all that we came here to be, they want to hijack because it's their quest to hold it for themselves and to keep us from it, convincing us that we're just, you know, and this is all stuff we know, right? That's what they've been doing. But through what mechanisms, right? Well, they leverage the planetary energies. So the rings of Saturn, according to David Icke, are a massive broadcast system broadcasting a fake reality. DNA holds all the information we will ever need to build and maintain the human body. Researchers at Boston University and Harvard Medical School studied that 98% of our DNA that remains unable to be decoded is called trash DNA. But if you look at the qualities of Saturn, in the chart, the dark version of Saturn is tyranny and control. It's authority. It's the law of structure. So if 98% of our DNA is junk, it's because 2% of us is listening to that authority and not exploring the rest. When we begin to explore the rest, okay, we can through music and art and other ways to connect with the multidimensional, but when we start to speak it, when we start to dismantle the matrix and the system, that's when we start to get into trouble. That's when we start to breathe life into the artificial and realize, you know, we can dissolve, which actually the rings of Saturn are dissolving, these rings, you know, that after Maldek exploded in the asteroid belt and this Saturn moon matrix really, you know, was the technology to keep this patriarchal programming, or just, it's not about like men being above women. It's just, as long as there's imbalance, it doesn't matter who's above who. It's just not sacred union, not integration. That allows this false artificial reality to occur because in this imbalance, we are prone to entity attachments, archons, mind control, and just total confusion because we don't remember our galactic history. We're not learning about it in school. We're just placed in these institutions and they're getting worse and worse and worse as we're seeing. And I just often joke, you know, wait till that day where third period class is galactic history and fourth period class is like, and your guidance counselor is like, wow, you're a star seed and you're on a mission, you know, that's not, we're not gonna put you on Ritalin or like, we're not gonna medicate you, like, you know, like, yeah. So we got a long way to go, but and it's really the return to the cosmic Trinity, mother, father, the true parents, and sacred union, away from the false parents and the false partner. So the false partner would be what has been modeled to us, the imbalance of the masculine and feminine, being at discord with each other, and then the Anunnaki, the lower creator gods that have kept us from true source, and how that's in our genetic code, and how this junk DNA actually holds the connection to all of that. That the outer planets and all the astrological alignments assist us in discovering and awakening within ourselves, but we constantly allow ourselves to get distracted, so it gets like hijacked, or we just allow this false version to come in instead. It's sort of like, and why I always compare it to, you know, why are you dating such a loser when you could like be like, it's your true love, or like just, you know, be single for a while, and like we have choices every day. Why would we want to be with that false partner or that false parent, or like listening to that? But we might not think that there's anything else that might be all that we think we're worth. And that's where we're played, you know, from childhood. Our self-worth is totally like played with this punishment reward system. You know, straight A's, you have to do this and you have to be like that. And And I'm sure a lot of us in this room, you know, were either those kids or maybe you did really, really well, and you're utilizing, you know, how far you've gotten to begin to breathe, you know, even more into the picture that maybe wasn't there because we're all like, you know, doing this greater work. So I look at this as, you know, the great breakup, bifurcation of time, you know, the low frequency unstable is that bad partner, that false parent. It's just like, nope, we're done. That's not stable. That's just like too much drama, too much conflict. You're lying to me. I can't trust you. But yeah, we voted for you because you seem trustworthy. And here we go again. Just like Neil was saying, like we're just like, we got mommy and daddy issues and we just keep like needing like, and it's like totally unstable. And it's just never working out. And like, why? And we go through that period of being like victimized and we're just constantly attacked and it's just like so screwed up. And then wait a minute. We don't need any of that. And then high frequency, more stable, sovereignty, you know, doing the inner work, finding it within, finding soul family, going on cruises, being together, you know, and just like, wow, that's a whole other choice, you know, and you could feel that and then talk yourself, oh, I can't because of this and this and that. But we are the ones that said, yes, I can, I'm going to make it happen. Even if you didn't have the money in the bank, it's like, it happens. When you're devoted, it's like, you don't have to rely on that paycheck. You know, nature responds, you know, the greater universal forces. And if it, you know, for some reason doesn't happen, you know, maybe next year, it's just like a greater trust, and that's forming a good, solid relationship. You know, when you're in love, you have to have that kind of dynamic. You know, you're going to go travel. You're not going to go like worry about like, ooh, you know, who are you with over there? It's like, no, it's like you trust. It's a greater bond. But you also have the stability in case that isn't a trustworthy person to know how to fall back on yourself. That's why I've been betrayed over and over again by the system and everything else, because we're here for spiritual and soul development. And one of the greatest lessons for us as humans is we have to know how to fall back on ourselves. And once we're strong enough in that, our connections are going to be greater. And even if they were to, you know, fall to the wayside, we're not falling with it. We're not sinking with that ship. We'll have enough of our own self-awareness and self-love to be able to continue on, regenerate, and keep moving forward. So it's very much about the micro and macro connection. Integration of polarity or remaining in duality, which makes us vulnerable to be fed upon. And we notice that in our lives with energy vampires that might come into our life, where people just drain you or they're just not in their highest integrity. Humans on their soul journey are being faced with needing to break up with an inverted system in the same way we need to divorce or break up with an energy vampire, narcissist, or deceiver. Being soul-centered is 5D. We are in relationship with creation and we grow together, go through thick and thin to remain committed and loyal. This is the path to your twin flame. To allow the lesser partner, the matrix, to take your time and energy is delaying your greater destiny. And it's just that, yeah, like, and our guides are just like, why are you agreeing to that? Why are you consenting to that? You're made of better, you know? And that's why we have to fall on our face until it just is proven to us. And even, you know, if it's on a physical level and you're at the doctor's office, he says you'll never be able to walk again and you walk again. Or, you know, in any arena where something is, you know, seems to be impossible, that's how we break down Saturn. We say, no, I don't think so. We're going to take charge of that law of structure and recognize that the highest octave of Saturn is self-mastery. And through all these trials and tribulations and all these challenges and obstacles, you know, we're like really becoming pro at gaining self-mastery instead of getting further and snarled in the tyranny and the control of that dark relationship. Saturn rules commitment. So when we look at marriage and commitment, right? When we're committed to something, we're in agreement or in a contract. So these contracts are being broken and the cords are being cut. So spiritual warfare and psychological warfare, bioharvesting methods are tactics that are used so that we keep feeding an inverted system that is parasitic. Our astrology chart can help us remove ourselves from the dark weaponry and manipulations that come through the news, social media, Hollywood, religions, and the medical industry. Mutations in DNA can occur as a natural or unnatural process. The unnatural is our exposure to mind control, weather weaponry, chemtrails, artificial intelligence signals, vaccinations, laboratory-made viruses, and toxic elements. The fifth element, ether, was also put into reversals on the Earth grids. This has been corrected now, and our relationship to our inner spirit and ancestral clearing can help us align and integrate this energy. So it's not like, oh, we've been exposed to all this, oh, we're just screwed. No, it's like one of the most important energies has been set free and it's circulating now to be able to handle all the abuses and all the assaults and all the bioweapons and the viruses and whether we got the jab or not, we got the spike proteins, we're like all exposed to it. And the thing is, you know, whatever frequency comes at us, we can upgrade it. We can take it to another level. We can change the energy of it. So if it was enough to just give us and throw us, these assaults and bioweapons, they wouldn't bother with the false news. They wouldn't bother with the indoctrination. They require our belief systems to be in that game for any of these bioweapons to even work. So the minute you move your frequency beyond all of that, the weapons don't work anymore. They transmute, they transform, they become a different energy. And it's just trying to create an antenna and just a link. It's trying to make it easier so that when you're unconscious and you're just going about your day, you're not even thinking about how linked in you are. You just think you're just going about your day. And now it's just getting obvious to a lot of people that, especially if you've heard of Ascension. Was Ascension like we're just going to get sicker and we're just going to stand 6 feet apart and not breathe? Like, that's not the image I had as a kid. And this, Schwab guy, anyway. So the programmable alien AI has infected carbon material and is what has taken over the platonic solid dodecahedron and related pentagonal geometries that build time-space constructs. These time-space constructs are instruction sets in the morphogenetic field that run into the ley lines of the planetary body. This is how they have built artificial realities and false timelines and projected them into false holograms. So the dodecahedron is connected to the ether. And with it being in reversal, that is the control of physical matter. So the inverted pentagram or five-pointed star, so prevalent in Satanism, is also symbolic of this unbroken time cycle, the vibrational prison. The fifth element connects to alchemy in our throat chakra and is the key to overcoming this. It comes down to the power of our words. So dark mother reversals, Baphomet, harvesting, and siphoning, this is all this reversal of the dodecahedron, the ether element, symbolic of the pentagram going downward. And it's also known as the reversal mother. And it's the anti-female collective consciousness of the Satanists whose accumulated collective consciousness is harvested by the negative alien agenda to gain energetic power from the earth grid and from humanity. Thus, in order to gain full access to siphon the planetary consciousness energies as well as the human soul, that further spread the satanic forces to take power and control in the earth. This is the entropic system put in place in all controller pillars of society in order that they can continue to hijack all aspects of the female consciousness and all of its permutations, such as the fallen goddess consciousness energies, which gives them access to the earth energies in order to achieve their total control and enslavement agenda of humanity. It's like, awesome. That's just so, right? And that's within all of us. It has to do with our DNA. Let's not get confused about what it means on any other level except for how it scrambles the fire codes. It makes it difficult to integrate polarity and move through the initiations that are bringing us into more awareness of the fullness of all that we are. So if things are in reversal, it's like if we don't have both activated within ourselves, one's silenced, one's blocked, one's traumatized, and it's not being healed, and it's constantly feeding into something outside of itself, we're going to experience it in this zodiac. And if you look at the 12 houses of the zodiac, these are the pillars of society in the upper houses, right? And the lower houses is kind of like how we were raised. So fourth house, home, roots, family, your emotional foundation. Third house, connection with siblings, friends, neighbors, community. What was that like for you? The planets are going to show. What was the patterning? Did that go well? Did you move a lot? Did you have a creepy neighbor? Did you get attacked by a dog? Were your parents there? Did you move a lot? Was there divorce? This is all part of our early conditioning. But it's all based in how this impacts the 12-strand DNA. 12 houses, 12 strands of DNA. And the epigenetics, our belief systems, the way we feel about ourselves, the injured and the genetic damage we hold are played out in these experiences. So do we have parents that help us to heal and recover from our childhood? Or did we have a great childhood, and was everything wonderful? But then we moved into society and got these careers and jobs and then realized we're working for Satanists? Oh, God. It's like, whoa, no matter where you turn. It's like, and it's not all bad either. But, we begin to understand this stuff, then we begin to purify the energies. We begin to raise our consciousness to the higher octaves of the planetary levels, and we purify the houses by doing the inner work. So depending on, where you have a bunch of planets and what aspects they're making, that shows you, the challenge you were born into, to be a part of the planetary system healing itself. And when you're not on autopilot, you are part of the planetary system healing itself. But if you're, in this infection of dark matrix, dark Saturn, then, we're feeding into a trajectory of an artificial timeline, and we're just staying, very dumbed down, very lesser than what we could be. So we look at the higher, houses, career goals, achievements, fame, success, public image. And, you're seeing, people like Epstein, P. Diddy, they might have had planets in the 10,000, but their transits aren't looking so good right now. Groups, friends, social causes, right? Lots of false movements, funded movements by Soros, right? You can just see a dark Saturn coming in when you see a person's chart, like they might have survived a cult or gotten out of that, So to understand the patterning is to really understand the epigenetics, what's going on in your DNA and what is being activated, and to bring more consciousness and awareness to it so that you're not just on autopilot, you're not just like, continuing the patternings, you're upgrading things, you're taking it to the next level, you're purifying, and you're not consenting to what you feel is wrong. And then, also, when you're maybe saying goodbye to a career or job, there might be a great transit in the 12th house where you're going to go, on a spirit, like a medicine quest, a plant medicine quest, or go to a sacred site, or go meditate and go off for a while, right? And I think I did have a heavy transit when I went into the wilderness for a couple of years. It's like, I need like a break from all this and like figure some stuff out. So we're given everything we could possibly need, but when we misunderstand and we say, oh, that's just lazy. Oh, you just don't want to work. Oh, you don't want to do that. We have all this negative self-talk that literally hijacks what life is granting us to restore ourselves and heal ourselves and switch ourselves back on. And we just battle ourselves constantly with this negative self-talk, which is coming from, mostly you'll see in a chart, dark Saturn. We think it's our intuition, or we're just hard on ourselves, but it's like, nope, that got conditioned into you, that is not yours. So the right upright pentagram spirit coming in, that's what purifies the elementals. So the spirit energy is the fifth element, the ether. Going into the ground, physical density seems to hold dominion over our spiritual natures, which we know it doesn't, but we're constantly praying and hoping for something. And with spirit, in the flow, it's like there's a direct connect. There's miracle energy. There's magic, But when we're in a system that symbolically has that energy suppressed, there's disease, imbalance, world war. I mean, we've just been through it. Thousands and thousands of years of dark history. So the zodiac alchemical laws. The zodiac structural principles are both energetic and geometric blueprints based upon lunar zodiacal imprints that were generated by the invading races to suppress human consciousness with the lunar matrix, which is currently being dismantled and realigned with the alchemical laws inherent in 3 natural laws of God. So that's Lisa Renee. So zodiac alchemical laws. If the fifth element is no longer in this reversal spin with the dark technology and all this reversal spin, and that's corrected, now that this energy is available, which it is right now, November 30th to December 17th, the sun moves through Ophiuchus, the 13th sign. This is our opportunity to dissolve the dark Saturn from within ourselves. And we can do it in all sorts of ways, sound healing and just talking it out and understanding ourselves better, working with all the different healing tools and modalities to really hold space for this alchemical substance to come in and dissolve and break down the heaviness of dark Saturn. So themes connected with Ophiuchus, 13th gate, 0-point unified field, sun movement through, in 2010, that's when the sun started to move through the 13th sign. So when the prophesized window period of ascension was being talked about, well, what backs that up? Well, the sun moving through Ophiuchus. The sun moving through Ophiuchus, Ophiuchus being opposite Orion, Osiris, directly opposite, the 13th sign. This is helping the fallen aspects come back up again. So if you look at alchemy, you look at Pluto, death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation. And we've been taught to fear death. There's a major veil between life and death. So when we think, though, about death or things that we have to let go of, we go through this process of death, rebirth, alchemy, transformation, and we're completely born new. And that's the hijacking, is in those powerful times on the planet where we've had significant transits or conjunctions with Pluto, that's when it's like, let's make them scared of death. Oh, let's make them because stagnant energy is connected to pathogens and viruses. Energy that moves, that's going through the cycle of a plutonic transformation, moves right through that. It releases what doesn't serve it. There's no entity attachments. There's no overgrowth of parasites. It's just like the energy is moving. But when you're stagnant, when you're stuck, when you're in fear, yes, you're a breeding ground to a lot of, dark stuff. But when you're able to move through, you wouldn't want to be stuck in the birth canal. It's just not going to go very well. So nature is helping us to do that. But we've had thousands of years of dark history where even the outer planets have not been in harmony with each other. Dark Saturn comes in, like Saturn square Uranus. When we're about to liberate, Saturn's like, no, no, no. So we see in society all these attempts to make it difficult for us to be free. And that's really, the sticky part of the breakup, where we just have to be determined. You're not not to look at your phone. Don't answer the phone if your ex is calling. Don't give it attention. Don't give it energy. It's just like, just keep moving forward, keep moving forward. So this has been a process of the planetary system releasing its body from the clutches of these dark technologies, just like us, that are a reflection of that and how that has impacted our minds. So this is the time. We're right in it right now. We're in Ophiuchus time, November 30th to December 17th. And creatrix connectivity, pure transparent crystalline light, divine mother, and the cleansing power of cosmic love, recoding the DNA, aligning to the cosmic heart of Lyra in Andromedan universal center, rebirthing, cleansing the blood, breath, and mitochondria. So do you remember in 2019, 2020, blood clots, don't breathe? They're so threatened by us really taking in the breath and really being grounded and really being centered in this, that it's just like anything to hijack it, anything to hijack it. Because they knew, this was their showdown time. This was a window period they were planning for. This is why it's like New World Order or Ascension. And so the New World Order, yeah, just like we know, if we stay with that toxic partner, what does it lead to? Jail, death, for that person, just tragic crime stories. If you binge watch crime shows like me, just those kind of stories. It's not good. When you break free of it, though, and you have true love, it's like you can get through everything together, and you get closer in the challenges. You bond more with each other, and this is what real conscious communities do in the face of all this adversity. We don't buy into the divide and conquer. We continue to work together and stick together and get through it together, and I love that about all of us, because there has been a lot of targeting in this disclosure movement stuff. Okay, so Ophiuchus, Chiron, divine fire, water, the golden gate. This phase is a solar alignment with the cosmic ether, which is at the core of the galactic center, which represents the pouring of healing spiritual waters into the earth and humanity from Mother God. Previously, these waters were corrupted by entrapping the mother principle, the dark mother reversals, and gold ray seraphim on earth. And there's so much history to all this, and Sophia and Achamoth, but this is just to just really give us an idea, though, of like this return, to the mother, the reuniting of that, and also the father, and moving, beyond all of this, because the dark mother reversal just gave us a lot of false, just not the complete picture. Who is Sophia and what happened? What is the Achamoth? What is Tiamat? What are these exploded planets? What happened to our divine blueprint? Why do we come in the way that we do? So RNA's primary responsibility is to make proteins according to the instruction sets encoded within a cell's DNA. However, in RNA, the nitrogenous base is made up of nucleic acids, cytosine, guanine, adenine, and uracil. Also, each of the RNA nucleic acids is connected to the elemental substances of the planet as air, water, fire, and earth. In both DNA and RNA, the mitochondrial DNA serves as the fifth principle connected to ether, element of cosmic ether, which is sourced only from the mother. So if that was in reversal, literally we've been born with amnesia, with this trauma that we haven't really understood, which is why it's so easy to get caught in the addiction matrix, because we're looking to appease, the loss of mother. We have our biological parents, and that doesn't always go so well, but this, on a bigger picture level, the loss of the mother energy. The mother energy was not able to be anchored and grounded in the planet because of the cataclysms and all of that was going on, that it was until the sun started to move through Ophiuchus and the Venus transit had completed enough of its process of repair work, and the groups coming in on a physical level to shift the energy, for the mother energy to ground back in to occupy her planet, just like when we're not really in our bodies or fully conscious. It's just this whole process of restoring the mother. So thus, the mitochondrial DNA damage, humanity, because of that, is grossly addicted to consuming everything in the external world to fill the energy void within our cells. And this is from multiple sources, including Lisa Renee and husband and wife team, Hager and Becker. So it connects with the planetary grids. The grid description, the platonic solids, octahedron, tetrahedron, icosahedrons, hexahedron, and the dodecahedron complete the global grid. They're reversal 55 and dodecahedron reversals, which was the inverted pentagram symbolism, the reversal mother. DNA proteins. In DNA, the nitrogenous bases I've already talked about, earth, air, fire, water. So when we pollute these 4 elements on the earth, we pollute the corresponding nucleic acid in our DNA. So when we see the outer elements and we understand that our inner elements are connected with our DNA, and we look at this process of like healing and clearing ourselves from toxicity, this is a process that we're going through with this planetary system, that the planetary intelligence knows what to do with the alignments to repair itself. Because it's encoded in nature. The minute we get cut, we know to heal. The minute something is broken, it's like the immediate response is to, it's just encoded in nature. And so everything about mind control is to take us away from what comes so natural, to just be in the flow of, transformation and repairing, and just how a system just knows how to heal itself. That's what Ascension is the planetary system recovering from the exploded planets, from the cataclysms, from the 7 root races being pit against each other with this dark satanic cult, operating behind the scenes, funding both sides of war and making this huge mess that people are still arguing about today. So in its highest expression, this constellation represents the potential blueprint of divine perfection in a human being. It also represents the pending birth of the Christ child growing in the womb of the Divine Mother. It is one with all things and has no opposite. The negative alien agenda had control over aspects of the 12 constellation transmissions, which had resulted in more extreme negative polarities in the world of forces. In order to achieve their intended objective of control over matter forms and to influence humanity into the negative polarity and to use planetary dark matter for running AI machinery. So they take advantage of our wounds and how we're unconscious to them. So if the 12 zodiac signs have been impacted and we're just running more of the shadow qualities, like we all know, sometimes like Scorpios, oh my God, or like Geminis can be like, and like Libras, it's just people pleasing. But look at the higher octaves of all the different signs and all the different planetary energies and how, it's all like a part of us. And even if, whatever our chart is, there's going to be a transit, there's going to be a progression, there's going to be something where you're going to experience all of it, or you're going to draw people into your life that maybe have a whole lot that you don't have a lot of, because we're here to switch on what's dormant. But we come in with a specific map to play our part in the planetary healing, to be a conduit of that and an expression of that, and to work together. That's what unity consciousness is. That's why they want to pit us against each other, because we're here to switch each other on and repair. So if we can just pit us against each other, or like wipe out certain races with the Holocaust and genocides, it's going to make it really, really hard. That's what they're afraid of. They want to maintain control. And as long as we just get that, we'll embrace, our differences and realize, that's a part of myself that hasn't been expressed, that I'm glad you're doing it. I'm over here doing this. And then once we switch each other on, we'll feel more wholeness, and we'll just feel, just a greater sense of, self. And then, who needs a chart reading anymore? If we ever, some people don't even, if you're mindful and conscious, you're just going to feel the energies, right? But it can be really, really helpful to know what's coming from where and how it's impacting your body, if you have physical issues or just still working through stuff. But it's going through a zodiac shift, alteration, from the 12 sign system with the 13, with the alchemical laws of creation, and it's dissolving all dark Saturn patternings. All the negative patternings that are in your chart are literally dissolving, and this is the month, this is the time of year where it really falls away and really begins to dissolve. And you're attracting into your life experiences that like really help to solidify that. And some are just gonna get further, distracted, and they're really missing out, on what their guidance might be telling them. And it might just be walking in nature, just changing their diet, or just doing something different, getting out of a bad relationship. But it's going to get easier and easier for people because, they need to see, those that get it and are kind of leading by example and showing the way when they notice that their ship isn't maybe going in a direction that they want because it's based in artificial intelligence, artificial timelines, and somebody else writing the script and taking control. Because if we're not in control of ourselves, something else is going to jump in and want to do that for us. So the diamond heart in the earth body is essentially the definition of the Sophionic body of mother. The feminine principle is needed to be grounded back into the earth body because when not grounded, the dark mother reversals are in power. And it is the feminine enslaved and used by forces of domination and control. And that's basically just our creative side, right? We don't have to put it like masculine and feminine, but we have like, the womb, the dark, that births, just when we create, when we come up with an idea, when we come up with an intention or a vision, we want to manifest it. It's our power of manifestation and creativity. And they have to work together. Our inner, right and left brain, masculine and feminine energy, the electric and magnetic. So Okay, so Chiron helps us to understand our mission through wounds and afflictions, and it shows us what we're missing and longing for. Doing the inner work and staying aligned with our, I don't know, excuse me, that slide, it's a little messy. The healing energies available will connect inversions and disease. So currently, we've had Chiron and Aries, wounded ego, wounded warrior. We see the inverted expression of it in the world. Attack on human identity to disempower and hijack the soul-centered person, intuitive, free-thinking, evolving human. So regardless of what we're thrown, we have many choices in how we're going to respond to it. We're either going to be on the healing path, we're going to recognize it, we're going to gain wisdom and more clarity, we're going to put good things in our body, we're going to, understand that it's an opportunity to step into the healer mode, or we're going to be victimized, we're going to get lost in it, and we're just going to continue to be injured. And see it as like something outside of us is going to solve in society, somebody we vote for and this and that. And of course, there is something to all of that, but we don't want to completely rely on it. This is a time of really moving away from that dependency and taking it upon ourselves and making sure that we hold them accountable to really serving the people. So Chiron and Aries, wounded ego, a lot of the targeting too, a lot of the censorship, and the gender confusion, what they're doing to our children, the indoctrination, just the wounding of you not determining within yourself who you are and somebody else, trying to define it. That is an injury, So more freedom of you being you is how we heal it. And this is where we can do that. Free thinking, being soul-centered, being intuitive, being able to say no, being able to, just not consent and just say, I'm going to live to be me and whatever anybody else says, whatever. It's like, you're going to find your fucking people. We did. So fear tactics are used to keep the trauma bond alive because people don't know how to heal and cut the cords. So anyway, January 11th, there's a nodal shift. The key themes will be the Pisces, Virgo, nodal axis. We're going to move more into the health and healing, spiritual alignment, connection to nature, harmonizing opposites. So if you look at the Piscean energy, Neptune's going to be really big, moving into Aries, also Saturn. There's going to be such an emphasis on Neptune, where we won't know what's real and what's not real. The thing is, we need to be real with ourselves and just live our truth and be creative. That's the opening of the creative imagination, that they're going to just want to implant all sorts of things to just get it all confused and get it all and just pulled in this direction or that direction. But it's a time of body, mind, spirit integration. When people talk about body, mind, spirit integration, they're basically talking about the polarity integration of the 12th house, Neptune, Pisces, with the Virgo, Mercury, Earth. So Virgo has to do with our physiology, physical health, physical lifestyle, being on the healing path. What do you tell your body? What do you put in your body? When you're triggered, do you grab a bottle of vodka or you have a green smoothie? Dismantling that in every moment is how we deprogram, our self-worth. That's also the second house, Taurus, Venus. Uranus has been in Taurus, Venus, right? Currency, major disruptions in the way we relate to money system, currency, how much we have in the bank. Uranus is the wrecking ball. Is our self-worth dependent on how much money we have in the bank? How do we define worth? Yes, that might be important because we want to have fun. We want to be able to have a sense of security. But are we giving our power away and consenting to something just so we have that? Or are we allowing ourselves to be dismantled and have worth that's based in our integrity, our spiritual path, and go through that opposite, that plutonic energy of Scorpio, die and be reborn, and have greater value, greater self-worth, know what we're worth, and attract that abundance to ourselves, which doesn't come always in the form of money. It can come in the form of soul family and good friends, and just being pulling money out of the ground when you need it, or just being in the flow of life or in the now, and just seeing the synchronicities flow. Because, as we know with astrology and gene codes, there's different types of personalities and how you manifest and create. And so the more we know ourselves, the more we can appreciate ourselves instead of, all these stigmas or all these judgments because it doesn't fit into what somebody else wanted. And those days are over. What is a silly system anyway? So anyway, so these outer planets, we experience very often the shadow side because we're not in a world where we're going to schools or churches or in communities where it's there's going to be this major transit going on, and it's going to wake you up. You're going to be activated. You might have a bit of anxiety and PTSD, but it's a great awakening, a time of great awakening for you to really know yourself and connect with these downloads coming in. Write it down, and what is it saying? It's suppressed. And it's internalized because we're listening to somebody else very often. Or we have to prove ourselves to get into a position where we might be able to be heard. And that repression or that internalization can create constant panic attacks, constant PTSD, nervous breakdowns. It really affects our neurology. And we lose connection to our higher guidance because we're just like, fuck. And because we're not trusting. It's like a download's coming in, but it's like, no, I can't listen to that because I'm supposed to listen to this. But it's like, no, that's your genius coming in. That's your uniqueness. You want to listen to that. So if you see a chart that like your Uranus has been blocked with dark Saturn or it's just like having a hard time, it's really nice to know. And Neptune, you know, the shadow side of it is fear virus, mind virus, disinfo, confusion, all designed to infect our creative channels. When things outside of you just want to capture your imagination and just have you create for them. Parasites, archons want that. Dark systems, you know, want that. They just bait us in with what's going on in the television. And then strong Neptune energies like we're in, Neptune, Aries, that means the ego is no longer compartmentalized. It's now able to embody the fullness of our multidimensional self. But how much are we energetically corded to somebody else wanting us to believe something? That's when we also cut the cords. And that's the later part of the divorce where it's like, however that person made you feel in the relationship, you're going to cut those cords, you know, and redevelop your self-worth so you find a much better partner, which is the true love within yourself and with creation. That's why I said it's restoring the love story of creation, the Christ Sophia within ourselves. You know, the false parent is gone. Those frequency fences are gone. The false partner, the imbalance is gone. We have that union within ourselves. And everything, you know, responds to that in the outer world. So Pluto in Capricorn moving into Aquarius, the shadow side, suicidal thoughts. When you're going through a death spiral, your physical body wants to go too. Like, I'm out of here. I hate it here. I just want to die. I've never felt that. Heavy energy, darkness, stuck in the birth canal, not wanting to get out of the cocoon, or sometimes just wanting to get out and not trusting, right? You're just in this death process, and it's really dark. You can't call into work. I'm in the underworld. I can't come in for a couple weeks. There's no space. There's no space being held. It's just like work, 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 do this, do that. You know, you have to be sick. You have to be in the hospital to get any time off. Like, no room for dark night of the soul over here. It's like, you know, what kind of society, like, helps us with these initiations? None. So we're left to our own devices. We go on road trips. We meet each other like, hey, you know, like, holy shit, what was that? Like, we find each other. We come to these events, and we're just like, because we're riding the waves. We're the surfers of these energies. And we're like, you know, we're not allowing ourselves to be cut off from these initiations, these grander initiations that society does not want us to experience. It wants to drug us. Oh, you have anxiety. Oh, you have depression. Oh, you're angry. Oh, you're suicidal. It's like, instead, you know, they could be like, well, let's help you understand that more. And this is the world we're going to move into. These kind of people that are in influential positions, teachers, like everybody in here, you know, like being the ones that are helping to guide our children on a much larger level. We're not just going to be some, you know, small group over here that everybody thinks are like, well. So anyway, what happens when we resist these energies? Out of all things, it's when we resist these energies that our immune system is lowered. We could blame it on a jab. We could blame it on our diet. Yes, it doesn't help if those aren't, you know, good for us. But it really comes down to how much are we suppressing these powerful energies. You know, Pluto, transmutation, alchemy can turn that lead into gold. Uranus, it's just like miracles, upgrades, you know, a higher frequency that can just like knock it all down and rebuild it. Neptune, the creative imagination, if you can dream it, you can manifest it. So, you know, as much as we might have been assaulted and attacked by all these things, we really have access to all the energies we could possibly need to overcome and override it. So when we don't know that, we're hijacked, our energies get siphoned, we feel hopeless, lost, and confused, we're in survival, we're reactive, and we're ungrounded. So it's within our hands, it's in our hands. So epigenetics, science is proving that our body's ability to heal and repair itself is greatly affected by our beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and intentions, for they have a profound vibrational effect upon our continually evolving genetic code. We're the programmers of the code. DNA activation is our software upgrade. So that's why I always say, like, you know, when you're in that challenge, when you're in a trigger, when you're in, you know, a funk, you get to change the energy of it. That's where you're healing ancestral patterns. That's where you're breaking the programming. That's where you're changing your relationship and dynamic with life, because we're in a relationship with it. But we don't want the false matrix version that is not in tune with nature. We want the real soulmate connection. We want the true love connection with creation that we are devoted to, go through thick and thin, and it's that real higher Saturn self-mastery, not the contractual dependency bond of inverted Saturn. That's why the rings are starting to disappear, and the Saturn moon matrix are shifting and changing, because we're de-weaponizing the weapons within ourselves, because we're winning the war within ourselves. So together we're going to see a world that reflects us back to us. But because of the bifurcation, we don't want to see all these people stuck in that bad relationship. There's probably going to be a major bridge between the two splits of relationship counseling and people, you know, just being like, over here, over here. And we have infinite amount of time to all come home to source. And we all have our own unique ways of, you know, getting there. But, you know, just the love and compassion and all that we can do to assist people while we're here is a lot of what we are doing. So going back to the epigenetics, Heather Carlini from the Carlini Institute for Therapy, and you can just read the rest of that, talks about this. Lower emotions are low frequency energy stored in ourselves from past experience and traumas that we have encountered and never processed. And that's very much the Virgo, not processing the Neptune part, the things hiding in the unconscious, that when we shine light on is the multidimensional. It shows us things that we have not addressed yet. So, and our body holds the unconsciousness in physical ailments that want to be unlocked. So in our cells, it's stored from past experience and traumas that we have encountered and never processed. Photon energy is a much higher frequency energy that pulls up the lower emotional frequency so it can calibrate to the higher frequency. Thus, we find ourselves releasing emotions such as sadness and grief without knowing why. The elements of our blueprint are interfaced in the cellular consciousness, and when the blueprint is amplified through photon energies, various elements of the blueprint leak into your consciousness, and we begin to remember our soul's purpose. That's why everything, every pain, every anger, everything that doesn't feel right is a clue to everything that is about ourselves. It's just guiding us. But if we are unconscious to it, we just act out. We just act like, you know, we just have personality disorders, and we just like hormonal. Like, what's wrong with you? You're so sensitive. You're this, you're that. And we just take some time to like bring it up into a higher frequency, give it a voice, and it's the difference between just like putting a little heart emoji, you know, like making somebody like smile instead of putting them down. It's just like in every moment we can be like this healing, you know, technology for each other, beyond technology. You know, we can make each other's day, inspire each other, uplift each other. We can completely like make each other have the worst day ever. Like, I can't believe she said that to me, or he said that to me. You know, it's like it's in our hands to just be that gift and blessing for one another. So, you know, and we can help each other, you know, come out of those funks. We're all going to dip into that every once in a while, but we don't want to deny it, you know. We don't want to pretend we're not in there when we're there, you know. And that's the thing with the alchemy. Like, that's where the unconditional love needs to come in. Because as humans, we are going to go down into the guilt, shame, apathy. I'm on the treadmill every morning running through my guilt, apathy, and I won't talk too much about me, but, you know, like that can be a part of like your inner work on a regular basis, that you run into that or something triggers that. But in your conscious awareness, you're just not going to deny it. You want to bring it unconditional love, because it's really hard to always calibrate up here. But if we can bring it the love, the unconditional love that it deserves, then we're not medicating it, we're not shaming it, or we're giving it, you know, good medicines that, you know, are helpful to, you know, release ourselves. And that's bringing it into the high frequency. Chiron will be in Taurus June 19th, 2026, after Uranus and Taurus moves into Gemini. Then we'll be recovering from where Uranus and Taurus really shook up our sense of identity and our self-worth. Now we're dealing with the Chiron in Taurus. Where are we wounded there? Where has, you know, currency change or our life change? Did we face a disaster? Did we lose our home? Did we leave everything and start a new job? Are we kind of in a transition? Are we wounded there? Do we feel afraid to take the next step? Or are we feeling empowered? Are we on the healing path, and it's healing that particular part of ourselves, our self-worth? So that's going to be a theme coming up after we do the Aries one, which is, you know, moving into the Neptune. If they're unresolved wounds, that's when we're easily like energetically corded. But if we're conscious of those wounds, you know, we can utilize that Neptune energy to manifest healing centers and retreats and more medicine and more gatherings and more, you know, conscious healing. versus unconscious healing, which is, being in that loop. So we had some, really, really powerful activations this year. But this is what's coming up. This is really, quite heavy. The Saturn conjunct Chiron square Pluto is coming up in 2028. These aspects last for a few years. So Saturn conjunct Chiron square Pluto. Squares are challenged. You got Saturn, Chiron. The wounding coming from outer authority. We're dealing with wounds connected to societal wounds, bigger picture wounds connected to all these institutions that betrayed us, that deceived us, and all the well-intentioned people that did not realize what they were doing, that have to face that difficulty of overcoming it. And how that, might be much more easy to heal with the assistance and support of one another, who might have gotten to the other side. It's like, where we know that intention is everything, that nothing matters more than where was our heart, where was your heart at? There's going to need to be like major rehabilitation though. This is when we might have already gone through the divorce and breakup, right? But this is when we're seeing a lot of our friends and family like really ready to just like not have anything to do with it anymore, or they're going to go down with it. Then we're going to see a lot of people that want to break free from it, but can't and don't know how to shift over, and we're going to see a lot of casualties. But in the bigger picture sense of it, it's all okay. There's going to be so many that are going to embrace the healing tools and modalities and the therapies that are available to move through this process. Because it's not just going to be the healing tools and modalities, it's really helping people come to terms with, the enormity of how deep this goes and how much we might understand that is going to be hard for other people to understand about what's infected every pillar of society and the darkness that has gone on for far too long. But we're seeing it exposed more in the news. P. Diddy, Epstein, all of this, a lot of people speaking out, a lot of survivors. And I think it's going to be more the norm that they're out there to really help people. And a lot of the individuals that have been blackmailed or they're running altars that have been trauma-based mind controlled, that we are going to understand, more of society is going to understand, not cast them the enemy and help them to rehabilitate and be free of their captors, of their family members that were part of this, multi-generational. But this is going to be a really, really intense time for all of that. And what we witness, I mean, it's like great to be awakened, but, it's pretty devastating when you see your friends and family that just aren't ready for this. But it's so wonderful to just see that bigger picture and know that, the unconditional love, and when the timing is right, that soul will, get there. And we don't have the answers. We're not higher or better. We just got divorced earlier from this inverted system that has fooled us, tricked us, and the most beautiful and well-intentioned of souls. And the thing is, it gets really, really difficult when we begin to activate into these higher chakras. That's when they really start to come at us. And that's when the 8th and 9th, we know about the 7 chakras, but the 8th and 9th, that's like the infinity spiral and this integration of polarity, really moving into these, greater energies. And so that when they can see that the collective is ready to take that leap, that's usually when the psyops, the false flag, some kind of trigger event, and all these different tactics to just really shake things up and really throw us off center. Because once we reach this on a consistent level, they really can't vampire off of us easily. And so, that's kind of where the targeting comes in. And the 3 levels of sacred marriage. And this is where the love story and the reunion of divine union within yourself, after this divorce with the false partner and whatever dependency bond, it's like this is what you're looking forward to. And on a micro level, you've already done this in your life. More than likely, you've already left those bad partners. You've already left that maybe bad job. Maybe you're in the middle of doing it right now. But the minute you decide to do it within your own life, you become that beacon and that frequency generator that helps, others feel like they can step into that. And that overrides the 5D. I like to call us 5D towers because we override all the dark technology when we are able to move beyond these assaults and weaponry that rely us to buy into the bait that's coming through the news and these false flags and psyop events. And the more we take that energy and power back, they're not going to be able to use this weather weaponry either because we're elemental. Our DNA is elemental. The nucleic acids of our DNA are elemental. So if we're on autopilot, they're able to mind control and create artificial timelines and control the weather. When we harness that energy and take it back, we can help to break down those storms. We already know that's possible. People have done that, done these meditations, seen how we are able to shift these things. So the more on alert we are, we know the game's being played. We know that X very well. We're never going to date a narcissist again or a dark system, right? We're going to move on from this experience, go to the cosmic campfire and be like, holy shit, we're never going to form any kind of agreement with anybody who treats us like that ever again. And then we'll notice like how much the elementals are in response to us. and the way we manage it and keep it purified, the way we find balance and harmony within our elemental system, because we are walking replicas of the planetary system and a part of its greater healing. So scientists prove DNA can be reprogrammed by words and frequencies. By Grayson F. Fossar and Franz Bludauer. And I know Jerry Sargent works with frequency and does this kind of work. So, and a lot of people here, you know, so I'm talking to people that are just like, yep, that's what I do, that's what I do. The human DNA is a biological internet and superior in many aspects to the artificial one. Russian scientific research directly or indirectly explains phenomena such as clairvoyance, intuition, spontaneous and remote acts of healing, self-healing, affirmation techniques, unusual light auras around people, namely spiritual masters, mind influence on weather patterns, and much more. In addition, there is evidence for a whole new type of medicine in which DNA can be influenced and reprogrammed by words and frequencies without cutting out and replacing single genes, right? And this is the same with dark weaponry. Are we going to go like and dig into like wherever they put the dark technology under Stonehenge and like dismantle the technologies? No, we dismantle it with our consciousness. We dismantle it by not playing into the programs that have been streaming to us, that have been modeled to us, and we override it because we do the deeper soul work. We go through these initiations that the planetary energies and alignments provide without allowing society to suppress it, medicate it, judge it, and silence it, and shove it back inside to where we have so many diseases and conditions that we just drug it and go upon our merry way without being very merry at all. Very disturbed. So we're all in a hall of mirrors with this heavy Neptune energy. Neptune energies are strong when it comes to trying to make sense out of the news. What's real, what's not real. Perception is seen through the lens of our hopes, fears, dreams, and wounds. We then try and define it and say, this is what it is, this is what it means, and this is who's doing it, who is right and who is wrong. I mean, and these are important conversations, but it's still just like, wow. I try not to have fixed beliefs. I'm like, I think it might be this. What do you think? Because, my gosh, yeah. So Neptune and Pisces, the North Node Aries, hanging near each other, and into next year, Saturn and Neptune conjunct at 0 degrees Aries, Pluto square Chiron. So this intensity of this transformation, and then Saturn really solidifying things. So if we want to like solidify the timeline, we want the stable high frequency. And that is that we trust ourselves and our own creative imagination, that whatever we are making sense out of, whether it's real or not real, we can be real with ourselves. We can manifest our visions and dreams. We can see, you know, that there is an artificial version and always an organic version. And if we're true to ourselves and organic with ourselves, as far as being able to listen to our intuition and our higher guidance, we'll be able to navigate much more easily, even in times of confusion. In times of confusion, maybe there's a little bit more processing to do, or maybe we just don't want to get like wrapped up into it. But you know, now is a time of really powerful dreaming and manifesting, and we're doing that. We're creating visions of the new earth and like what's ahead. We're supporting each other and each other's missions. And yeah, so Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries in 2026 will birth the new divine warriors onto the scene who will push forward to build a world based on higher spiritual, humanitarian ethics and values. These people are being prepared and initiated right now onto this path to building the new earth. So, and that's totally the Aries Neptune. Before, you know, the Aries, not Aries as a sign, but the Mars energy has been very compartmentalized. And so when we look at the ego wounds that we've been moving through, it's like, where is that compartmentalism kept us in these, you know, limited identities or labels, you know? Now it's like Neptune, wow, now the ego is a vehicle for the multidimensional, for that dream realm to manifest through the vehicle of our self-expression and what we can, you know, connect to and envision for ourselves with intent and consistency. So the Earth is a living organism, and we are part of her healing, and with assistance from the higher races of our galactic family and a deeper awareness of ourselves and the traps that have been put in place from these lower forces, we'll be able to navigate our future with peace, clarity, and discernment. The same laws apply to our body as to the planet. Imbalance needs to be resolved to protect ourselves. We have to increase the love vibration on the planet and take our power back. The greatest threat to any service to self-being is our unification, sacred union, and our free minds and our connection to our higher self. So let us start to embrace the choices that we have to connect with the mother energy of the planet and source energy, Mother, Father, Christ, Sophia, so that we can step fully into our multidimensional bodies and break free from time loop and archonic false systems. So, you know, and Earth is doing it to itself, you know, with Venus being so close. When we're talking about that inverted pentagram, that ether energy that was put in reversal, Venus as a planet has created this orbit of a perfect pentagram to restore it to its upright position, to be able to drop back into her physical body And that's the unconditional love of the mother that never leaves her children behind. And we will not abandon this reconnection with our mother, with our divine blueprint, with the sacred union within ourselves, that integration of polarity that will lead us to soulmates, more soul family, more togetherness, and more rehabilitation and healing to anybody that is still under the spell of that terrible partner that caused them to believe that there's something that they're not. And that, you know, sometimes is what it takes for the human race, is to really be so far away from yourself, to have it create such a crisis that you begin to find your way back home. And so thank you so much for being in my life.